Hey guys, it's Patty, and today I'm going to give you tips on how to make your resume as strong as possible to land those fashion jobs and internships. And resumes are extremely important nowadays, especially because most of the job hunting process is done completely online. And a lot of these tips can be applied to any other business function jobs, and you can also use these if you don't have any fashion experience yet on your resume. So I hope that this is helpful if you are job hunting right now, or if you're not job hunting, you can save these tips for the future. And a quick reminder to please subscribe and thumbs up this video to show your support, turn on notifications, follow social media in the description box to always stay updated. Okay, so I'm sure most of you know what a resume is, but it's basically a document that summarizes your accomplishments, experiences, and skills. Now, it's important to stay humble in life, but I feel like this is the one place where you're encouraged to show off and kind of just show everything that you've accomplished in your life. And resumes are super important because that's the first thing a recruiter will see that's representative of you and who you are. And unless you've met the recruiter in person face-to-face somehow before, you're just another document that gets uploaded onto your computer. So that's why it should tell a good story on your experiences and who you are. I'd say having a strong resume and getting an invitation to an interview, that's kind of the first half of your battle in job hunting. The second half is definitely tackling and killing the interview yourself. And that I will cover in a separate video. So there's two aspects of the resume that you should pay attention to. One is the content itself, and two is more of the aesthetics and formatting. So the content is definitely the most important part because no matter how pretty your resume might be, you still need to be able to hit all the job requirements and prove that you would be a good fit. And the way to do that is through your words. Of course, formatting and the aesthetics of the resume is also important, but you shouldn't weigh it as much as the actual content. So for the content, your main goal is to be able to fill up your resume as much as possible with impactful, detailed descriptions. And you also want to make sure that the content in your resume is customized, personalized for the job and the company that you're applying to. You kind of want to treat it as if you're packing a suitcase to go on a trip. Obviously, you're not going to be packing your entire closet because you can't bring all of your clothes on a trip. You're going to pick out outfits that's fitting for the activities that you're going to do, for the climate of the place you're going to. So you kind of curating these pieces as kind of you curating the different experiences that you want to include on your resume. And this includes not only which work experience, which extracurriculars you want to include, but also we're talking about the bullet point descriptions that go beneath them as well. So to get this all done, my recommendation is just getting a Word document and jotting down all of your experiences and all of the required information that you would be putting on a resume. And this is just nice to do because you're not really restricted by the formatting and space that you have on a resume, and you're just going to want to keep this as a side ongoing document so you can keep adding to it as you have new experiences. And this is something I still do to this day as I learn new things on my job or have different activities that I take on. I'll just keep it, just kind of dump it here. And this is especially useful if you're doing internships, because usually internships just last a few months, and after a year or so you might forget every single thing you did. So here's just a rough list of topics, the kinds of required information that you want to include. So once you've just listed all of that information in your Word document, the places that you want to improve upon and focus on is your work experience and your extracurriculars. So any sections you basically had descriptions and bullet points. This is where we can make it a lot stronger. So again, our goal is to be impactful, detailed, and tailored to the job. So in order for these bullet points and descriptions to be impactful, I recommend that you go back and look at every single work experience and extracurricular and make sure that you listed out every single thing that you did. Every little task, every single responsibility, and this doesn't just have to be in professional settings. It could have been a school club, literally just every single thing you did in that Word document. And then the next step would be to make sure each bullet point starts with an action verb. So you want to make sure you're using strong, really descriptive verbs that show what you did. So for example, I could have written that I talked to customers, but talk to, it's just an ordinary verb, but I'd want to upgrade that to something that's a bit more descriptive and sounds like it could fit in with a more professional setting. So instead of talked to, I can write communicated with customers. Instead of writing I worked with a team, you can write I collaborated with my team. You also generally don't want to repeat too many verbs on your resume, and you can literally Google synonyms of the verb and find new words to use. And you want to make sure you're not sounding like overly ridiculous. You're trying to sound professional and accomplished, but you don't want to make it too distracting per se. And this does really make a difference because recruiters might potentially read like hundreds of resumes a day when they're trying to hire someone, and other applicants might have had like really similar experiences as you. But if you present it in a more professional manner, then you might catch the recruiter's eye. Next, you want to elaborate on why you exactly did these tasks in your bullet points. So one mistake a lot of people make is just saying what they did. You know, like we just went through this exercise, but this is only step 1. Step 2 is to actually elaborate on the meaning behind these tasks. The reason we all have jobs is because all of these tasks are part of like a higher up strategy for that company or the place you have your activity. Every company, every group, you have some sort of goal that you're trying to reach. So even if you are at like an entry-level position, even if you're just an intern, every little thing that you did kind of helps a bigger goal. So for this example, we wrote, oh, I communicated with customers. And to do what? What was the point of communicating with customers, and how did it help your business? Think about it. I communicated with customers so that I can notify them of the new merchandise and begin the new season's sale process. So this reflects our strategy that we're kind of using on noting down what you did and how that impacted the business organization. You can also think of it sort of as like a cause and effect, the cause being what your task responsibility was, and the effect being how it actually helped in the bigger picture. You also want these descriptions to be as detailed as possible. Be specific where it's appropriate. So it's especially helpful for you to like list out what kind of applications and programs that you used. You can use like the specific names for those. And also if your company or organization like worked with other companies sort of as like a client or had some sort of interaction with them during your day-to-day activities, you can definitely include their names as well, as long as it's not confidential. And you know, even like in industries like fashion, everyone is like somehow connected. So if you can include like more names and companies that you've worked with, the sort of better it is for you. Like you could have been a merchandiser at like a really small local boutique, and like there wasn't a really high chance that the recruiter has heard about it. But you can include like, oh, what are the brand names that you bought for that boutique? So the final step to bring your bullet points to like the highest level of strength is quantifying where appropriate. So this means adding numeric values where it can show the scale of your work. So for a specific example, I can add the number of customers that I communicated with. So for fashion jobs, the biggest way that this can really help is when you're talking about like dollar amounts. So talking about anything related to sales, profitability, and also referring to market share. So if you're talking about like improvements that you've made on like your customer base and your reach, those are really helpful as well. The most important is just going down to the dollar sales though. You know, fashion is a business, the players are selling clothes. So if you can show ways that you've helped increase sales at any of your past experiences, that is super, super, super helpful. Like if you're a sales associate, you can share how much sales that you've helped generate, maybe like an average per week. And quantifying also shows improvements. So if you ever helped increase sales, increase a customer base, anything that you've done that helped have a positive change, you can add that in as a percentage. Like sharing how something you did helped a business get like a 10% increase in sales. Or maybe you've like opened new social media accounts for a company and you've seen like a 20% increase in new customers. This also shows the recruiter that you sort of have this analytical mindset, that you're able to look back at what you did, see the changes that you've actually made, and just thinking in numbers really helps. So you're really showing the recruiter that you're comfortable with this mindset and that you're also aware of how a business functions. Not every single bullet on your resume obviously like needs a number or a percentage, just only where it shows how you were able to make an impact. Okay, so you've written out all of your super, super strong bullet point descriptions. Now you want to pick and choose which experiences, which activities, and which bullet points you want to add to your actual resume. Now, what you decide to put on your resume should be based on the job that you're applying to. You shouldn't be giving like the same exact resume to every single job, because not all jobs and companies are the same. And just kind of as like a general rule, you should have at least 3 bullet points under each experience. Now, if you're still in school, you might not really have the ability to think about picking and choosing what to add, because you might be in a position where you don't have a lot of experience, so you don't really have a lot to write down on your resume. You might be looking more on how to fill it up rather than how to cut it down. So I'd say just try to elaborate as much on your extracurriculars and activities. And this is why it's important. I'd say, like, at least in college, being active in a few different activities, these can eventually help you get your first internship or job. Now, if you do have a lot of experiences and activities to choose from, then you want to include all of the experiences that are most relevant to the job posting that you're applying to. Now here, you really want to focus on the job description that the recruiter has posted. They usually just like bullet point a bunch of different stuff that they're looking for, things that are like required, things they would like to see but are not required. So make sure you look into every single bullet point, and you're basically going to go through and see what experiences and skills you have that match up with each of these bullet points in the posting. So put yourself in the recruiter's shoes. Think about what kind of person they're really looking for. And also, bringing it back to our original Word document, this is where you can really look at everything that you've done and accomplished and pick and choose the ones that are the best fit for this job description. So when it comes to like fashion buying and merchandising positions, most companies are looking for people that are like know how to work in a team, that know how to use Excel, have some sort of like retail math experience. So anything related to these bullet points, you'd want to pull over and make sure it's included on your resume. If you're looking towards like digital marketing positions in fashion, then you might need to know how to use Photoshop and how to use all of the different social media platforms. So if you have experiences in those, make sure you definitely include those in your resume when applying to the job. You can also think of like a customer base that the company has. Some companies might be targeting like an older customer looking for more like luxury fashion, or another company might be focusing on like the younger generation, Gen Z, where people are kind of following these certain trends. So take those into consideration. You can also sort of tailor your job titles and positions, and this only helps if you've had like a position and the title was very, very like general or broad, because making something more descriptive and specific can help you show your experiences more to your recruiter. So one time I was an intern in wholesale for a company under their women's ready-to-wear line. So this was on my resume as a wholesale intern. But when I was applying to one job, this one company was focused on women's ready-to-wear fashion. Even though this is included in my bullet points, I can also show the recruiter that I have direct experience here real quick by adding this specific job description into my job title. So instead of just writing wholesale intern, I revised it as women's ready-to-wear wholesale intern. So in no way is this like changing my, like job experience. I'm just making it more descriptive, and now the recruiter doesn't have to like go through all of my bullet points to kind of see what kind of business I was working with. And as time goes by, you generally want to avoid really, really old experiences. Like as you graduate high school and enter college, you want to reach a point real quick where you're no longer including high school activities on your resume as a college student. And this is kind of similar as you graduate from college, you want to include less and less college experiences on your resume. So there's no one right way to format a resume, but there are some guidelines you should follow. One is to keep it a single page. That's why it's also important to make sure you're picking and choosing the best details to include on your resume, since you're going to reach a point where you can't include everything that you've done on a single page. 2 is fill up that page. If you have too much white space on the page, it could look empty, and that's not really where the focus goes. If the page is full, it's kind of showing a message that you've done a lot, that you have a lot to say about it. A recruiter should see your resume, look at all of the different experiences that you've had, and be excited to kind of have a conversation with you about it. 3 is just making it neat. So this is just like the tiny little formatting details, such as like being consistent with like your capitalization, punctuation, making sure you're using margins, everything's aligned properly. Really basic, but I mean, if you forget something, it could look a little sloppy and unprofessional. And 4 is to just making it easy to read. So you shouldn't be using any crazy fonts. You should have simple black text on your resume, and try not to use a font size smaller than 10 so that people don't have to squint to read what you have to say. So I feel like compared to a few years back, people have been getting more creative and innovative on how they're formatting their resume. And you know, it's totally fine, but you should definitely try not to go overboard or crazy. If you're like on the fence with some like formatting decisions, I just say it's better to be on the simpler side than making it more complicated. So the exception to this is if you're applying to like a more creative position, like let's say you want to be a graphic designer at a company, then you can definitely push the boundaries and use your resume as a way to show off your graphic design capabilities. And sometimes if there's like too much color or graphics involved, it can, you know, look borderline a little cheesy. It also just sort of distracts the recruiter because they're just trying to find out if you meet all the job requirements or not. There's like a good amount of websites out there that have like templates for you. They like ask you to fill out your information, and then they have these like pre-made templates, which I think is pretty cool. I personally like to use these as like just inspiration and pick and choose different details on what I would want to use on my resume. And with my resume, I honestly just use a Word document, but I just include a table so that everything's aligned on the page. This is an example of more of a standard, typical resume. This is definitely an option, and it keeps it simple, straight to the point. Formats like these can also definitely be used. This just kind of has a more modern touch to it stylistically. This is another modern example. I think the middle does look a little busy, and I think the person could have elaborated more on their work experience, and this could be actually good if you don't have a lot of work experience to write about. This example I think would have been better without the graphic banner. It'll look a little less cheesy, a little less tacky. And this one just has a bit too much white space. I feel like if the text went through all the way through the right, this would have been better. Just remember that there's no one right perfect way to format your resume. I suggest you play around looking at different templates, picking and choosing different options to play around with, and then create a format that works best for you and highlights the points that you want the recruiter to see. That's all of my tips. Thank you for watching this video, and I really hope this is helpful for working on your resumes. Don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up this video, and for this sort of fashion career series, my next topic will be interviews, but let me know if there's any other topics that you guys are interested in. And I have other videos lined up just regarding like fashion and other activities in New York, so please stay tuned. Thanks, bye!